team on community, and I gave a few nuggets out there on social media, which I did not like doing. I don't like videoing myself and posting on there, and I never watched any of them back because, you know, kind of all the things wrong with it, nothing good with it. So. But I do want to say this about Father's Day. You know, I was raised with a divorced family. My mother had divorced, but she had met a gentleman later on in my life that was really a good father to me. I mean, he really, really was. And I realized after they separated later that I actually looked up to him, and he was just a great mentor to me that carried on with me things that he did, the way he held himself in public with other people. He just got respect everywhere we went. And it gave me an impression and a desire to be like him. And this is prior to me really chasing God and being in church. This is just me as a 14-year-old, you know, whatever. And as life went through, I realized that I could probably count back to about 4 or 5 people now. Other men that were in my life, they were strangers to begin with, but somehow or another we connected and they became a father figure. And so, you know, and there's probably 4 or 5. One is your pastor. You know, he's my father-in-law, and any father or even mother-in-laws out there, be good mother-in-law and father-in-laws. I have the best. I mean, I really do. And it really means a lot to a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law that they have good in-laws. You know, a lot of people don't have it, and there can be strife and so forth, but it really has impacted my life, Pastor, that you're a father in my life. And it makes a difference in my life. Not only just a spiritual father, but he's my wife's dad, and he's truly a father to me. In saying that, you know, it doesn't just go for men, but I've learned that these men, these 4 or 5 men that have been in my life, were a light in my life. And it doesn't just go for men. I just had one of these 5 pass away. And what I realized in the last year of knowing him, that, you know, he was really a light into my life. He's blessed me and my wife and our family. And, you know, I think part of him reaching out and being a light to me, I was able to be a light back to him as well. And it's not just for men. There are many women that are a light to people. And my message is on community and relationships. You know, I didn't have the title community, but I changed the title to Extraordinary Relationships. It's a 3 or 4 part series that I'm doing, and I just think the title means more to explain that it's extraordinary relationships is what we're seeking for. You know, there's women in this church. You're just a light to me. You're a blessing to me. Miss Gina always refers to me as her brother from another mother. Well, you know what? That really takes some walls down. She comes up to me and she sees me and is humorous with me and accepts me, and you are a light to me. Amen. Now, I'm a little darker than you, but I won't hold it against you. I get pretty dark in the summer. But I love you, sister. I really do. And there's a lot of women in this church that are a light to me and my wife. And it's just a blessing. So that's not just for the men, but, you know, what I want to do is return the favor that these men in my life have done to me to somebody else. Amen. I want somebody else experiencing me. When I pass away, they could say, you know, that man was a light to me. He blessed my life just by the presence. You know, by the Holy Spirit is within me, pouring out of me, and loving on other people. And I hope that I can do that to others in this world. All right, so community, the need for relationships. If you don't have the notes, I did put them back there. We normally pass them out. I did hand a few out to those who trust me to hand them out to. But if you want notes, you didn't get them. They're back by the tithe buckets. And it's basically the notes for the sermon. But here's the thing that we are missing, I see, in community. I know when I was raised as a kid, and it may just be for this moment that I noticed it, but I'm sure you all noticed it, but every time you passed a vehicle or car, they always waved at you. And you always waved back. Right. And it wasn't something that my parents taught me. It was just something that you recognized and you did. And they waved and you waved, and it didn't matter. Every car that passed by, they waved. And it's more than likely as a Southern thing. It might be, from being in the South, we're just like that. But that is a good example of community. You didn't know a stranger. I mean, especially in small communities or towns like Chilton County or Clanton or Thorsby, everybody knew everybody. Everybody's family knew everybody else's family, and that is the sense of community that you do not see anymore. Right. Very rarely, I make a passing joke about motorcyclists or Jeep enthusiasts. If you have a Jeep and you drive by somebody else who's got a Jeep, they all wave at you. It's part of the club. Same with being on a motorcycle. If you have a motorcycle and you're riding down the road past another motorcycle, it's part of the club. I mean, you wave at each other. And so we have that, we're missing that. Another place that you can really notice it is if you go to the beach and you get on elevators. And I shared this on Wednesday night. But elevators are weird. Because when you get on an elevator, you can see two people talking, and then when they step on the elevator, they just get real silent. And if you go to the beach, and most of the time during this time of year, the beach elevators are just packed full of people. And so a long time ago, so a lot of our buddies and I, crazy buddies back then, we're down at the beach, and we get on the elevator, started to get on the elevator, and it opened up, and it was just packed like sardines. And you can only imagine, because I've been on the other side, that they're sitting there thinking in their head, please don't get on this elevator. Well, we did anyways. And so, because we were in a hurry to get down, we didn't care, but it was so packed. One of my buddies was the last one getting on there, and as the doors closed, there was not enough room for him to even turn around. He was facing the audience, and as the door closed, he just cracked up a comment out loud. So I guess you're wondering why we're calling this meeting today, right? Well, the whole elevator just started laughing. And all of a sudden, and it was just an amazing sight to see, because all of a sudden, everybody started talking to each other and relating to each other for the ride down. And that's a sense of community. Elevators are weird because when you're on there and you're crowded like that, nobody says anything to anybody. You don't even try to touch anybody. You don't even look around except for up on the numbers to go down or up wherever you go. And that's really that's it. It's just a very intimidating spot. You're on there with a bunch of strangers, and to see a bunch of strangers get along is just amazing. We can be in church and not feel a sense of community. We can carpool to work for a year with people and never feel a sense of community with each other. And you feel part of a club or in a class. You get it a lot when you're a new student going to a new school. You have that intimidation and you have that lack of community, and over time you become part of that community. So, in doing this, I really in my heart want to get back to that sense of community. And that's really, this world today is trying to separate us and isolate us. And I'm telling you, it's just not God's plan. All right. So Paul, and it just wasn't the case for Paul either. Paul the Apostle. He was born in Tarsus, educated in Jerusalem, lived in Damascus, spent formative time in the desert, moved to Antioch, and that was just the beginning. Professionally, he ventured out from Antioch on 3 extensive missionary campaigns, traveling from city to city. Yet wherever he went, he established a band of people who he huddled together in a supportive and encouraging community. Now, how was Paul able to create such a significant relationship or significant relationships with others? All right, 1 Thessalonians, one of Paul's most personal letters, and on Wednesday nights we call that epistles. We're learning you know what that is. So, identifies some of the key components for establishing and maintaining community. And this we're going to fill in your notes if you have them. But 1 Thessalonians 2 is what this message is based off of, actually verses 7 and 8. All right, so number one is to concede your need for others. The definition that I looked up on Google for concede I liked because it says to admit that something is true or valid after first denying or resisting it. Now, how many of us would be able to admit that we deny or resist relationships with others? We all do it to an extent, right? We get intimidated, or we don't. There's a trust issue that we've learned over time not to trust people, and so we're all guilty of it. And so conceding your need is accepting the fact that you do need others in your life. We got to come to a point of getting out of denial and realizing that we really need other people in our lives so that we can share with them and so that they can share with us. That's verse 7. Verse 7, just as a child needs a mother, we need each other. In another letter, Paul identified this need to belong. It's 1 Corinthians 12, 20 through 22. As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I do not need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I do not need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. That's important. Because if you're haughty and you think you're better than somebody, don't be mistaken that you don't need the one that you're actually hoarding that over. Because we need each and every person. And each and every person plays a good part and can play a good part in our lives and ours and theirs. This need for others is deeply rooted within our souls. God planned it that way. That's why God said in Genesis 2:18, it is not good for man to be alone. Book of Beginnings, he says it right there. This need for others is God-given and deeply rooted in our lives. Now, wouldn't it be like the enemy to try to take that away? That's exactly what we're dealing with in our time and day now. Is the enemy is doing everything he can to take away the sense of community, to break up relationships. And I can speak for Lighthouse Church and us. That's what we've been preaching on for a couple of years. I know is relationships, and I would have to believe that there are other churches that are seeing the importance in relationships, and they're on a path of building true, genuine relationships with each other, and the devil doesn't like it, and he's trying to come against it. First, our relationship with Christ, and then our relationship with others. Yep. And that's the way it needs to be, and he does not like it. So he's going to do everything. You see it laid out before us every single day in the news. He's doing everything he can to keep us from having a relationship with each other. Right. All right, so I'm going to read this. This is Abraham Maslow. He's a non-believer, and there's a couple of typos in here I'll mention to you. I didn't do it. It's actually a correct thing. So I'm going to just blame it on the computer. He's a non-believer, but he reinforced God's original design and plan through his well-known theory of the hierarchy of needs. Maslow believed that one could learn as much from studying healthy, well-adjusted people as one could from studying those with problems. His conclusion was that each of us have various levels of need. As we satisfy one level, we then move up to the next level. Maslow's research revealed that before we can be a person of value and become all that we were intended to become, we first must have our social needs met. We must be a part of a group, affiliating with others, experiencing caring, and sharing relationships. Now, this is a non-believer. This happens a lot with non-believers. They just confirm what God's already done. All right, so number 2 on your notes is cultivate deep relationships. Cultivate, it takes effort. You have to actually do something to cultivate. Do not take your relationships lightly. To survive in a cold and cruel world requires deep relationships. You know, when we started getting isolated, I had all kinds of things coming at me, conspiracy theories, and I've got friends that are into all that, and you know, and you take this stuff in, and you can either hold on to it or you can let it go. But a lot of times I would pass things along with Pastor too, or my wife, or other believers, and I would get confirmation that it's just noise. You know, and it all comes back to God's word. That's what we listen to, not what the world is saying, not what's going on out there. It literally is. We need to focus on His word and His word alone. All right. And during all this time, for me to reach out to my pastor and to my wife and to other believers, it gave me the strength to go through what I needed to go through and make it out on the other end. And that's why we need each other. Because when we get isolated, that's when the devil's going to get us.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, staying connected as a family, he can't break us. But if he pulls a family member aside and puts him out there by himself, it's very easy for him to take us down.
That's right.
And so we have to stay connected. Those relationships don't happen on their own. They require effort. We have to do more than just reach out to others. We have to share our lives with others as well. This truth was not one of the secrets. This truth was one of the secrets of Paul's establishment of supportive relationships. We cared. This is 1 Thessalonians 2:8. We cared so much for you that we were pleased to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives.
Yeah.
The word pleased there means, it was a joy to him. It was exciting to him to not only share the gospel, but to share his personal life. You know, he really had a connection with the people that he come across, and it was genuine. Here's a man that every time he wrote to a church, he would call 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 guys out by their name. He had a personal, deep relationship. He was very close to these guys. He had developed significant relationships with people. All right. Found in these verses, 7 and 8, there are 3 words, rhyming words, that form the basis for developing relationships that have passed the test of time. Number 1 is care. Truly care. As a nursing mother nurtures her children, verse 7, remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They're not going to receive from you if they don't think you really care.
Yeah.
Number 2 is share. We were pleased to share with you our own lives. That's verse 8. Word picture of sharing our lives continues the mothering idea and paints a picture of a mother nursing her young. A mother cannot nurse her children without sharing a part of herself with that child. For us to share with others in deep relationship necessitates that we get up close and personal with another. One cannot share from a distance. Remember that. One cannot share from a distance. Number 3, dear. Because you have become dear to us. Verse 8. Paul loves these people. He truly did. In his heart of hearts. He cared for them. He shared with them. And they were dear to him in his heart. When we love others, we don't treat them as a means to an end, but rather as individuals of value. Each and every person, if you don't see people with value, then I would have to say check yourself. Because if you, for as many people as you see that don't have value in their life, there may be that many people that don't see value in you. And you know, we can't walk around with a plank in our eye and point out the sawdust in others. Yeah. We need to learn to be genuine. We need to care, and we need to be real with people. We must learn to communicate with others, to communicate our love with others. We must dare to talk about our affections. Now, I know men struggle with that, but I fortunately have never been one to. I'm very transparent, and I don't know why, but it's just my personality. I probably tell you more than you really want to hear sometimes. But, and I get some weird looks, and I just go. You know, I got over worrying about what people think about me a long time ago. So, I just go and vent to my wife about what I said, and I still always say. But anyways, no. But may we never forget. Well, let me go back. We must learn the gestures of love, a hug, a handshake, even roughhousing. I remember as a kid roughhousing with my uncle. I still remember to this day, and my grandmother saying, "Y'all don't do that in the house," or whatever. But that is a sense. That is a gesture of affection. You know, my kids, I drive them crazy because I pick on them all the time. And I just see, that's what fathers do, right? We pick on our kids, right? Well, they didn't like it, so I started picking on Kara. She didn't like it, so I started picking on my coworkers, you know. But guys, it is a gesture of affection. You know, I mean, there's a way to do it, and there's some people out there that might not do it the right way. But you got to understand that's what we do. That is, it's kind of breaking the ice. It's making the day lighter. And so, if you're one that gets offended when people pick on you, check the heart. Get to know the person. They're probably really just as intimidated or pushed or set off that you would be. And so they're just trying to build a relationship there. Again, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. May we never forget that love is something you do, not just something you say.
That's right.
Yeah. Number 3, commit to authenticity. Man, there's a lot of masks being worn today. There's a lot of people that put on masks and pretend to be somebody else. Yeah. You see it on social media all the time. Pretending to be somebody else just to get as many likes as they can. Commit to authenticity. We must commit ourselves to getting beneath the surface talk and become interested and accountable to each other. Authenticity occurs when the masks come off. Conversations get deep, hearts get vulnerable, lives are shared, accountability is invited, and tenderness flows. That's when, and here's the typo, it says believers. These believers, that's when believers in the body of Christ become brothers and sisters. So if you got to understand, for us to become brothers and sisters, we have to be real with each other. Yeah. It can't be masked or surface stuff. And, you know, if something's going on with your life, find a brother or sister that you can trust to talk to. Yeah. Invite them into your life. Be genuine with them, and then be genuine back. Again, like Kara said, you don't have to be a biological father to be a father. That's right. I've got many fathers in my life, and I've got many fathers and spiritual fathers in this house. You know, and listen, earthly fathers are going to make mistakes. Yeah. Walk in forgiveness. Yeah. There's no greater father than our Father in heaven. Yeah. So the best father that you know, our Father in heaven, is 100 times better. Yeah. And so you always have a genuine, loving father that you can turn to. Those that have abusive fathers, there's still a greater father than that one that you know. Don't get caught up in the misconception that you had a bad father, so you don't trust other men. Yeah. Or you don't trust our Father in heaven. Yeah. Because it is just a belief. It's just a conception. And there are many, many, many men out there that are good fathers.
Amen.
Good spiritual fathers. Assimilation is becoming absorbed in the lives of others as an active participant, relating to, sharing with, and caring for others. The Apostle Paul describes assimilation in 5 words. We imparted our own lives. That's 1 Thessalonians 2:8. He gave his own lives, involved his own lives in others. That's assimilation. Paul did not erect barriers. He did not put up walls. He was not aloof. There's another typo. It says we. It's he. He opened his life to others. Reuben Gornitzky said of the need for assimilation, we can't simply cheer people on and give them our best wishes. We have to make room for them in our lives. So sometimes you have to get your hands dirty with other people. And a lot of people, good Christian people, just absolutely avoid getting their hands dirty in somebody else's life. And for you to be a good father or a good mother to another brother or sister in Christ, sometimes it gets a little dirty. Just as your biological family, you don't always agree, you don't always get along. Yeah. But you never divorce your child. And your child cannot divorce you. It's just something that you just can't get away from. And that's the same way we should see, or your brother and sister. Same way we should see our brothers and sisters in church. Yes, we can leave, we can separate, but if our hearts are true and we are genuine, there should be nothing on this earth that separates us from our brothers and sisters. Even when they're not conforming to us or we're not conforming to them. Yeah. All right, so when we make room for others in our lives, the walls of indifference and apathy come down. When we make room for others, we discover the best of others and the best in ourselves. I want to read this as a close. This is if you like football, we may not get football this season. We just don't know yet. So don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you, it is a possibility. You can go ahead and just start preparing. And ask God to fill your life with Him. Yeah. Take a moment to reset your heart and realize that you don't need football. It's not a necessity. It is a privilege. Especially in America, it is a privilege that we get to enjoy sports and watch things like that. And that's all it is. All right, so I'm going to read this. When Gene Stallings, former head football coach of Alabama, was an assistant under Bear Bryant, a Fellowship of Christian Athletes chapter was began, FCA. Stallings was the first assistant to attend the meetings. Bryant was somewhat bewildered. After Stallings had taken the head coach position at Texas A&M, he received a call from Bear Bryant said, Stallings, you know what is the worst thing that has happened to our football team? He said, what? He said, it's the FCA. It's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He said, those players are doing nothing but hugging on one another, loving on one another, and they won't hit anybody. Bryant left Stallings to ponder those assorted Bear facts. After the season, which turned out to be one of the best that Bryant ever had, the Bear called Stallings again. Stallings, you know what is the best thing that has happened to our football team? He said, what? He said, it's the FCA. It has brought such a oneness and closeness to our team. Yes. We were unified because of the influence it had on our school.
Wow. That's good. Yep.
Being intimate with each other doesn't have to be intimidating. Yep. There's blessings that God will bring upon us when we come together as one body in Christ, as brothers and sisters in unity with His Word and His Spirit.
Yes.
What happened at the University of Alabama football team is what happened to me on the elevator. You know, and this can happen anywhere. It was something that comes together when somebody accepts the people around them
That's right.
and makes a difference.
Yeah.
People need each other. We need to take off our mask, admit our need for each other,
Yeah.
cultivate relationships, and strive for authenticity.
Yes.
So let's close with prayer. And Miss Retta's not here, so just close. Father, we just come to you this morning and just ask that we walk out with that authenticity, Father. That
Yes.
you soften our hearts, Father. That you remove anything in our being that may hinder us from that sense of community with others around us, Father. Open our eyes to see, our ears to hear, and our hearts to receive your love
Yes.
and your affection.